When I told my mom that my cousin had assaulted me, she just closed her eyes, rubbed the bridge of her nose, and said, "Sweetheart, you're a woman now. Stuff like this happens." I didn't say a thing back. That was 10 months ago. This morning, though, she couldn't stop puking after Child Protective Services showed up at the door. Growing up, I didn't have much, not people, not things, not even space to feel like a kid. My family was Hispanic and dirt poor, and most of their time was either spent working to the bone or hanging around, talking nonsense. So when I started getting picked on in high school, I kept trying to convince myself that it didn't matter. That it wasn't worth getting upset over. But, surprise, it totally was. I mean, I could lie to myself all day, but it didn't change the fact that by the time I hit 15, I didn't have a single real friend. Everyone at school knew I was that pathetic kid nobody wanted around. Eventually, I just cracked. I broke down and called my cousin Ethan. I was sobbing so hard my chest hurt and my head felt like it was splitting open. That kind of crying that makes your whole body ache. I truly thought I couldn't be comforted, but then, somehow, through all the sniffling and gasping, he managed to make me laugh. It was the first time I can remember ever really feeling heard by anyone. And I got hooked on that feeling. We started talking on the phone almost every day that month. Mostly, it was me rambling and him listening. He was 19 at the time, and he actually gave me advice that didn't sound like something ripped from a bad after-school special. And you know what? It worked. My grades picked up, I started looking after myself again, and I even stopped eating lunch alone in a bathroom stall. I started sitting out in the open, even if I was still alone. I had no clue that things were about to take a real ugly turn. My 16th birthday rolled around, and my mom decided to throw a big get-together and invite the entire family. I've never really cared about birthdays, but I was looking forward to seeing Ethan again, and maybe getting a couple gifts, not gonna lie. So I actually put in some effort that day. I wore a cute dress, did up my face, even threw on a pair of heels. After fielding what felt like 100 "Do you have a boyfriend yet?" questions from nosy relatives, we finally got to the best part, cake. It was this gorgeous chocolate tres leches. Right after I blew out the candles, Ethan came over and wrapped me in a hug. The second I saw him, I couldn't help but light up inside. Thinking back now, the smell of alcohol on his breath should have been the first red flag. But things started small. "Ethan!" I called out, and he came in for this long, tight hug, longer than what felt normal. His arm stayed around my waist a little too long. But he was clearly drunk, so I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe I was just being touchy, right? Except that same thought kept repeating in my head all night. Every time he stood close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin against mine. Every time his fingers brushed my leg under the table and he acted like it didn't happen. But eventually, he stopped pretending. I went to my room to grab a sweater. I didn't even get the chance to shut the door before he was already there, leaning in the doorway like it was his place, like I owed him something just for existing. He pushed me up against the wall with his body, so close I could smell the mix of booze and tobacco on his breath. I froze. Every bit of instinct I had was yelling at me not to make a move, not to fight back. Because if I did, if I made a scene, it'd somehow end up being my fault. Then he kissed me. Just like that, mouth on mine, hands down my back. That's when my body took over. I let out the loudest scream I could muster and slammed my knee right into his groin. While he was stumbling backwards in pain, I bolted out of the room and grabbed my mom. I pulled her outside and told her everything. I thought she'd get angry or upset, maybe give me a hug, or at least acknowledge it was messed up. But instead, she just let out a heavy sigh and rubbed the bridge of her nose like I'd told her I flunked a math test. "Sweetheart, you're a woman now. These things happen," she said, like it was just some everyday truth I needed to get used to. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I was gonna throw up on the spot. And sure enough, I did. That gorgeous cake I'd been so excited about came right back up into the toilet. That's how I spent my sweet 16, locked in the bathroom, curled up on the cold tile floor, crying and shaking. I didn't come out until I heard Ethan's voice saying goodbye. It was already 2 in the morning by then, so I just crawled into bed. But sleep didn't come easy. That moment, his breath, his weight, his hands, played over and over in my head. I don't know why I brought it up with my mom again the next morning, but I did. Maybe I was hoping she'd come to her senses overnight. Instead, she dropped a bomb on me. Ethan's sister was about to have a baby, and he'd be moving in with us soon to free up space at their place. I must have looked completely stunned, because she added something that made my blood run cold. She reminded me that the best thing I could do was let it go. "Don't hold grudges," she said. I nodded. I agreed. Not because I wasn't furious, I was shaking with rage. Not because I wasn't heartbroken, I was completely wrecked. But that night, lying in bed, something inside me changed. I realized the only thing that would make me feel better was watching him suffer. And with him moving in, I knew I'd get my chance. The day he showed up with his suitcase was one of the worst of my life. I stayed locked in my room the whole morning, trying not to puke from the anxiety. My mom kept knocking, telling me to come help clean up for his arrival, but I didn't answer. After a while, she gave up and muttered something under her breath about teenagers and their attitudes. Around noon, I heard his voice in the living room, and my stomach instantly turned to stone. I pressed my ear to the door and listened to my parents greet him, acting like he was some kind of hero. My dad was going on about how great it'd be to have a man of the house again. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my fists so hard that my nails dug into my palms until I could barely stand the pain. I knew I couldn't stay locked in my room forever. Eventually, nature came calling, and I had to pee so bad it hurt. So I cracked my door open as quietly as I could and glanced down the hall. No sign of Ethan. I crept out, made it to the bathroom, and just when I was about to sneak back to my safe little cave, I heard his voice right behind me. "Hey, birthday girl." I damn near jumped out of my skin. There he was, leaning against the wall, flashing that smug grin like nothing had ever happened, like he didn't assault me just 3 days ago. I couldn't even get a word out. My throat clamped shut. "Oh, giving me the silent treatment," he chuckled, stepping in closer. "Come on now, we're roommates." I backed away until I hit the wall behind me. My heart was thudding so hard I swore it was gonna crack my ribs. He just kept smiling like we were sharing some cute little inside joke. Then, out of nowhere, he reached out and gently brushed a piece of hair behind my ear. I flinched so hard I smacked the back of my head against the wall. "Dinner's ready," he said casually, and then just walked off like nothing weird had happened at all. I stood frozen in that hallway, shaking, feeling like my knees might give out. Eventually, I ran straight back to my room, locked the door, and didn't come back out. My mom called me to dinner 3 separate times before giving up. I overheard her grumbling to my dad about how I was just being dramatic and needed to grow up. I cried myself to sleep that night. My stomach was empty, and my heart felt like it had been wrung out. The next day was Monday, and I don't think I've ever been so relieved to go to school. I'd take bullies over Ethan any day of the week. I got up before sunrise, slipped out before anyone else was even stirring, and skipped breakfast just to be safe. At school, I kept my head down and threw myself into classwork, anything to keep my mind from drifting back home. I volunteered for questions I didn't even know the answer to, just to stay busy. But when that final bell rang, a knot tightened in my chest. I dreaded going back. I stalled for as long as I could, wandered the streets, spent some time on the public library computers, but I couldn't avoid it forever. Eventually, I had to head home. When I walked in, Ethan was lounging on the couch like he owned the place, remote in hand, feet up. "There she is," he said, patting the empty cushion beside him. "Come chill with me." "I've got homework," I muttered without making eye contact, trying to slip past him. But he reached out and grabbed my wrist. "Don't be rude," he said, and his voice suddenly dropped a little, just enough to set off alarms in my head. "I'm trying to be nice here." I jerked my arm out of his grip. "Don't touch me." Something flickered in his expression, like a flash of frustration or maybe anger, but it vanished just as fast behind another phony smile. Whatever you say, princess. I retreated to my room and shoved the desk chair under the doorknob. It wasn't much, but it gave me a shred of control. That night, I didn't have a choice but to sit at the dinner table with everyone. Ethan acted like the poster boy for family values, chatting about some job he got at a warehouse, saying he was saving up to go to community college. My parents lapped it up, proud as hell. I just sat there, moving food around my plate, trying to disappear. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her voice was low but sharp. "What's the matter with you?" she hissed. "You're being unbelievably rude to Ethan. He's family." "Nothing's wrong," I mumbled, eyes glued to the floor. "I'm just tired." "Well, snap out of it," she snapped. "He's doing us a favor by helping with rent. The least you can do is be polite." I nodded, but I didn't say another word. I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd scream. And that's when it hit me, no one was coming to save me. If I wanted justice, if I wanted payback, I'd have to do it myself. The very next day at school, I started digging. I skipped lunch and holed up in the library, researching everything I could about assault, what happens to the people who commit it, what options the victims have. Most of what I found was pretty bleak. A lot of folks never saw justice. But then I came across some stories, people who fought back in their own way. Some went public. Others collected proof. A few got really creative in how they made their abusers regret it. That's when I made up my mind. I'd start documenting everything. I created a password-protected Google Doc using my school account. Every creepy thing Ethan said or did, I wrote it down, complete with dates and times. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but having a plan made me feel a little less powerless. I also kept my phone on me at all times, with the voice memo app ready to go at the first sign of trouble. Bought a cheap doorstop with my lunch money, too, jammed it under my door at night like a wedge. Little things, but they gave me a sense of control. For about a week, I stuck to this routine. I left for school super early, came home late, and did everything I could to avoid Ethan like the plague. But he wasn't having it. I could tell my distance was getting under his skin. He started finding ways to accidentally run into me, bumping shoulders in the hallway, opening the bathroom door without knocking and acting surprised to find me in there. Every time it happened, I added it to the file. Then came the night that changed everything. Both of my parents were working late, which meant I was stuck home alone with Ethan. I was holed up in my room, door locked, chair wedged underneath, trying to focus on homework, pretending everything was normal. Around 9 p.m., I heard his footsteps outside my door, followed by a knock. "Go away," I said, trying to sound confident, even though my hands were shaking. "I got us pizza," he called out through the door. "Come eat before it gets cold." "I'm not hungry." "Don't be like that. I'm trying to make peace." I didn't say anything else. After a minute, I heard him walk off. I thought that was it, crisis averted. But 20 minutes later, I smelled something burning. I opened my door carefully and peeked out. Smoke was pouring out of the kitchen. I rushed in and found Ethan standing there with a scorched pan, looking like a kid who got caught stealing cookies. "I tried to heat up the pizza in the oven," he coughed. "Guess I cranked it too high." I shoved past him, turned off the oven, and grabbed a towel to fan the smoke. "Are you trying to burn down the damn apartment?" I snapped. He just shrugged. "Was trying to help. Not my fault this junk oven can't handle it." I rolled my eyes and started scrubbing the mess, my mind already filing it away in the document, another incident for the record. That's when it hit me, his little accident in the kitchen had pushed me right out of my room, just like he wanted. I turned to head back, but he was already there, blocking the hallway like he had all the time in the world. "Since you're out here, might as well grab a bite," he said, nodding toward the pizza box on the counter. I glanced inside. The box was still full, except for one lonely slice that he'd stuck in the oven. My stomach let out this loud growl, of course it did. I hadn't eaten since lunchtime, and the smell of warm pizza wasn't helping. Fine, I muttered, grabbing a slice and a paper towel. But I'm eating in my room. Ethan let out this dramatic sigh, like I was the one making things awkward. Always hiding. What are you so scared of? I stared at him, stunned. Are you seriously asking me that? He took a step forward, and I automatically backed up. I was drunk on your birthday, he said, voice softening. I messed up. Can't we just move past it? I felt something rise in my throat, anger, disgust, everything I'd been holding in. A mistake? I repeated, my voice growing louder. You followed me to my bedroom and assaulted me. Assaulted, he snorted, like the word offended him. Don't be dramatic. It was just a kiss. And that's when I snapped. I'd never felt fury like that before, full body, pulsing, blinding rage. You pinned me to the wall. You grabbed me. I'm your cousin, and I'm 16. His face shifted right then, the fake charm disappeared like it was never there, replaced by something cold and flat. You should watch how you throw words like that around, he said in a low voice. No one's gonna believe you. Your mom already thinks you're lying for attention. My hands were trembling so badly that I dropped the slice of pizza. It hit the floor with a soft splat. Move, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Or what, he said, stepping in even closer. That's when I remembered, I had my phone in my pocket, recording everything. I'd hit record the second I left my room. I pulled it out and held it up like a shield. Or I'll show everyone this. You just admitted what you did. His eyes went wide for a second, just a flicker, then narrowed into slits. In a flash, he lunged for the phone, but I was faster. I ducked under his arm and sprinted to the front door. I didn't have shoes on. No jacket either. But I didn't care. I bolted down the apartment stairs and into the freezing night air, running like hell until I reached the little corner convenience store 3 blocks away. I stood there in the buzzing fluorescent lights, breath ragged, heart pounding, still clutching my phone like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I opened the file and hit play. Ethan's voice came through crystal clear, him calling it a kiss, me calling it what it was. There was a timestamp. It wasn't a full confession, but it was something. Proof. The cashier kept throwing me sideways glances, probably wondering why a girl in pajama pants with no shoes was standing by the coffee machine like she belonged there. I bought the cheapest coffee they had and sat down at the little plastic table in the corner, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. Going home wasn't an option, not with my parents still gone and Ethan there alone. But I didn't have anywhere else to go. No friends I trusted, no family I could call. So I just stayed there, sipping lukewarm gas station coffee and watching the hours tick by. I finally headed back close to midnight, when I figured my parents would be home. The walk was freezing, and my feet were raw by the time I got back to the apartment, but the fear of what might happen if I waited too long outweighed everything. When I stepped inside, my mom was waiting, arms crossed, furious. Where the hell have you been? It's a school night. I couldn't tell her the truth, that I'd been running from Ethan. So I fed her a lie about going to the library to study and losing track of time. She didn't buy it, not really. But she was too exhausted to keep pushing. Go to your room, she said. And if this happens again, you're grounded. I nodded and disappeared into my room. Locked the door, wedged the chair under the knob like always. The apartment was quiet. Ethan's door was shut. I checked the recording again, still there. I emailed it to myself, just in case. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next day at school, I was useless. Couldn't focus, couldn't listen. My head kept going back to the recording, wondering what I was supposed to do with it. My parents had already shown me whose side they were on. The cops? Would they even care? It wasn't video. It wasn't footage of the assault itself. Just a conversation. A terrifying one, but still. And if I reported it and nothing came of it? I'd still be stuck living under the same roof with him. Only this time, he'd know I was trying to fight back. At lunch, I sat alone as usual. Then, out of nowhere, a girl named Riley sat across from me. We weren't friends or anything, but we had biology together and had partnered up for labs a few times. She wasn't mean. She wasn't part of the crowd that bullied me. "You okay?" she asked, unwrapping her sandwich. "You seem kinda off lately." I was so caught off guard I nearly spilled everything right then and there. But I caught myself. "Family stuff," I said with a shrug. She nodded like she understood. "Yeah. My parents are getting divorced. Total mess." "That sucks," I said, and I meant it. "Yeah, well, my mom made me go to this support group for teens with crap going on at home. It's not actually that bad. You should check it out sometime." I almost laughed. A support group? For what I was dealing with? Felt like it would be a joke. But I didn't say that. I just told her thanks and that I'd think about it. We moved on to talking about the bio homework, and for a few minutes, things felt normal. Like I was just a regular kid having a regular lunch. That little moment meant more than I expected. It reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone. That afternoon, I made a decision. Hiding wasn't working. If I wanted control, I needed information. So I flipped the script. Instead of dodging Ethan, I started watching him. The second I got home, there he was, planted on the couch with a controller in hand, deep into some video game. I forced myself to sit on the far end of the couch, acting like I was doing homework while quietly studying him, what he said, what he did, how he moved. He looked a little surprised to see me there but didn't mention our showdown the night before. And over the next few days, I kept it up. I started paying close attention to Ethan's routine, almost like I was studying for a test. He usually left for work around 10 in the morning, came dragging back in by 6. The hours in between were his free time, which he mostly spent playing video games or glued to his phone. One thing I noticed? He never left his phone behind. Even when he went to shower, that thing was in his hand. I also spotted how he snuck lemonade around, tucked it into his gym bag like a teenager hiding contraband. He'd sneak off to his room with it, probably hoping no one would catch on. And whenever my parents were around, he flipped a switch, suddenly the golden boy, all compliments and chores. It was a performance, and they bought it completely. But what really caught my attention was this: Ethan had a girlfriend. Her name was Alyssa. I heard him whispering to her most nights through the paper-thin walls, saying how much he missed her, making plans for when they could meet up on his days off. And all I could think was, does she have any clue who she's dating? Then one day, about 2 weeks after he'd moved in, I walked into the apartment and saw him knocked out on the couch. Lemonade cans shoved under the coffee table like he thought he'd hidden them well. His phone was just sitting there on the armrest, screen still lit up, completely unlocked. My heart kicked into high gear. I had a window. No parents, no Ethan, no one watching. I hesitated for half a second. Then I grabbed the phone. My fingers were trembling as I scrolled through his messages. Most of it was exactly what I expected: boring work convos, dumb jokes with his buddies, cringy flirting with Alyssa. But then I saw a chat with someone named Logan. And that's when my stomach dropped. "Logan, how's life with the fam?" "Ethan, boring, except for my little cousin." "Logan, the one you told me about at the party?" "Ethan, yeah. She's been playing hard to get, but she'll come around." "Logan, dude, that's messed up. She's your cousin." "Ethan, step-cousin. No blood. Besides, she wants it, just playing games." I felt physically sick. But I kept going. I took screenshots of every message, hands shaking, then emailed them to myself, double-checking that they sent before I returned the phone to its exact spot. Then I disappeared into my room and locked the door. That conversation was worse than anything I'd expected. He was actually bragging about what he was doing.